Brigadier Diwan, very welcome to our show. And today we'll understand certain world affairs which are very current in these times. South China Sea is something which we all need to understand. And what is happening in South China Sea by China and why it is impacting so much in the world. We all need to understand with the whole geography. And we'll let you understand by this touch panel which we have. Knowledge is something which is better if it is understood rather than learned. And for that, today we have Brigadier Dr. Vijay Sagar Dhiman with us, who will let us understand about the world affairs. Because all those guys who are appearing in the competition exams and all those guys who want their general knowledge to be better, they need to understand some facts. So, first, let us understand what is happening in South China Sea, what China is doing in this corona situation.
Well, thank you, Varanji, that you invited me to your channel to talk about this. But before I answer your question about what's happening in South China Sea, I would like to make two quick points. One is that whatever is happening there, whatever happens to international relations, how the relations between two countries are shaped, formed and evolved, it's an evolutionary process. Well, at one point in time, we had two superpowers in the world after Second World War, Russia and America, and there was a Cold War era. And then there was one bloc which is led by India, calling it a non-aligned, and there were various other treaty organizations were there within this particular thing when they were countering each other. But over a period of time, things get involved, things change, the geopolitical situation changes, geo-economic situation changes, and something we are witnessing today because of that. But before I go on to again tell you what about the South China Sea, I would also tell you that to understand the world affairs better, there is something called dime analysis or demi analysis, whichever way you want to cover. Whenever you have to determine the relations between two countries or two blocks or something, you got to have diplomacy, that is D for diplomacy. You got to understand the entire diplomacy and take all the intelligence and everything into account. Then you also must understand the complete the scope of economy, the economical factors, how the economy is impacting a particular country or a region. And then there is M, which is the military. Military means the relations between the countries would depend on the strength of militaries they have, the technological advancement they have made, and what future projections they are making for that. And finally, it is the intelligence. So intelligence is something which is very important in everything. And besides that, now this is a dime concept, which is a slightly older concept. Few new dimensions have been added, like hybrid warfare has come in the military. That means warfare by other than the conventional means. Then few issues like information warfare has come in, like Sun Tzu said that you should be able to defeat the enemy without firing a bullet, which China is facing. So with that kind of a thing, Chinese have involved in a certain kind of a situation which is threatening your peace in Western Pacific. It is not only South China Sea, it's even East China Sea or even areas which are next to Australia Pacific, next to Australia. So entire Pacific, Western Pacific has been engulfed by China by their own policies. And just a bit of a background about what China is doing. China's Communist Party came into being in 1921. And thereafter in 1948-49, they could throw the Chiang Kai-shek, that was the era which was after the World War had ended, and threw him to Taiwan, and they occupied and they started ruling it. But the problem was that with the Communist Party of China was they had some kind of a distinct nationalism which was based on history. So after a certain time, when China realized that they have had enough economic clout in the world, they have had enough military clout in the world, they started asserting themselves on land borders, on sea borders. So with that, what happened is they tried to resolve their certain land border disputes based on historical perspectives, and because they had the might and they succeeded in all, less India, because the land border dispute and the excision, which India claims to be its own part, and China claims it's part of Tibet, and Tibet is supposed to be part of China. And similarly, in South China Sea, they have some kind of various islands over there on which they lay their claims. Now, what happens in the sea? There's something called United Nations Convention of Law of Seas, UNCLOS. And as per that, certain territorial rights have been given which are rule-based. Unfortunately, China is also a signatory to this, but as regards following this particular treaty is concerned, it just refuses to accept that. And as a result, this South China Sea which you see over here, which is the Western Pacific. Now you see the South China Sea, as the geography entails, it's some kind of a enclosed sea that is bounded by Vietnam, Cambodia, Indochina on one side. Then on the southern side, it has countries like Indonesia, Malaysia, Brunei, etc. And on the eastern side, it is bounded by Philippines. And the northern side, you can say it is the Taiwan over there, where China considers Taiwan as its own part. So this kind of a thing becomes some kind of a lake which is enclosed from all sides. And unfortunately, based on the historical perspective, China claims that this particular thing entire thing belongs to China in contravention to the United Nations Convention of Law of Seas. So with that, they had tried to occupy certain islands like Spratly Islands, Parasil Islands, Scarborough Shoals, etc. These are the isolated things within the thing. And China has tried to occupy it and just try to make its own case stronger. In certain places, it has made its military bases. And well, there are certain shoals and there are certain, shallow lands which China has deliberately created artificial islands and then put their military bases. They made the air bases, the naval bases, submarine bases, and that's all. So China's this philosophy of occupying the South China Sea is based on, earlier they gave 11-dash line and now it is working as a 9-dash line. Now, why China wants to occupy this? The basic reason for China to occupy this is that the seabed in this area is very rich in minerals. It is very rich in rare metals. There are granules which are found on the seabed. Then this seabed is full of energy. It has got plenty of reserves of oil as well as natural gas. And then thereafter, the third very important reason about this particular thing is almost 60% of the world trade and 80% of the energy trade which comes from the Middle East and the trade even from the European Union through the Indian Ocean passes through this area. So logically speaking and strategic levels, the country controls this particular area. It controls the entire trade in this area, which is going to many important economies like Japan, like Australia, New Zealand, and then Philippines and Indochina Seas. Those countries are always there. So these are the three reasons China wants to make this particular thing as its own territory, and we can call it as a China Lake. So to make you understand this geography, I'll just show you on the map.